Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Cramey. Welcome back to our session today. It's going to be kind of a full one, so I don't have a lot of time. On the agenda for today, the Thursday topics, what we're going to cover, just look at some factors impacting workflow, looking at the steps that you might use to look at your current processes that you follow. Talk about some of the important concepts of automating those processes based on controls features. And then we'll end up the day talking and showing just very, very broad stuff on the cloud calendar app, and then also the production app. Got those working, and we should be good to go. There are 5 handouts today. If you look at the little tab on your GoToWebinar screen that says handouts, it's the 5 of 5. The order that I'm going to reference them, if you want to, I would encourage you to print them off. They're all very, very short. The first one that we're going to talk about is just as a reference, is that one that is labeled whiteboard and credentials. That was the one that I overlooked showing you on Tuesday, and I apologize for that. The second one that we will look at, the one that's labeled diagrams, workflow diagrams. No, I'm sorry. The second one that we'll look at is the your business info at the very, very bottom. And then the third one will be the workflow diagrams. And the next one will be the workflow. It's an Excel spreadsheet. And then the next one that we'll look at is the department level stations. Those are that's the order that I will reference these, and I'll mention them as we get to that spot. I'm going to switch over to control here for.
And while you're switching, Paul, if you would and ask your questions in the question box on the GoToMeeting interface, and we'll get to each question as they come in.
All righty. All right, let's get going here. I'm going to bring up that first handout that I want to show everybody. The guy that I stole this from is on the call today, so I apologize if I embarrass you. I'm not going to mention you by name, but anyway, thanks a lot for sharing that with me. This is just a visual look of one client's production board that they physically have up on the wall. All of the stuff on the left-hand side is more estimate related. And then this is the production processes and then the days of the week. And then all of these little squiggly things down here at the bottom are actually magnets. So that it kind of gives the flavor, as we'll talk later this morning, gives the flavor of the stations. Coming down here, this is all of the instructions for the credentials and the things getting set up that you will have to be, for scheduling equipment and labor. That's the first pair of stuff up here, enabling the use of the clock, the time clock, and the activity manager. That's the next two. And then the last ones here are the process that you use to log into control app or calendar app, and then the production app, and then some permissions related to log in of the production app. So those are just FYI. I'm not going to bring these back up as I talk about them. The next one is that we're going to talk about here shortly is the where's my go-to thing here? Okay, this next one that we're going to talk about is on the screen now, and I'll allude to it when we get to that point. So what I want to start off with are what are some of the measures or the factors that influence your production flow. Obviously, every single business is different. You have a different mix of business. You have a very different mix of products and services that you sell. But by and large, your business is going to be, the production side of it and the way you manage that workflow is going to be influenced as your number of orders and also the value of those orders increase. So the important factors are your sales, or your number of orders, the number of people that are involved in the production workflow, and the number of actual devices that you have. So what you're seeing on this particular handout is based on the history of 37 or 38 clients that I have worked with over the years, doing some financial analysis stuff. You can see that I've got them separated into 5 different buckets based on their sales volume. So under $500,000, half to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and over 3, and then the grand total overall average. Starting again down here, the number of orders, you can see it progressing and getting larger. Number of staff involved in the production process, and it incrementally steps itself up. Number of devices, these are real. They're not fictitious. They're real numbers of devices. This represents the average number of work days in a year. So I've taken the actual number Monday through Friday days and backed out a traditional number of holidays that a store is probably closed. And that's in the vicinity of 250 days. Now, if you look at these on an average, so the average number of days that flow in the spigot at the beginning of each day is roughly 2 orders for the smaller shops. And then those that are in the $500,000 range, it creeps up closer to 3.5, close to 9, 12, 23. And the overall average for everybody is a little over 5. The average number of orders that a production staff can handle is in that 1, and notice that it stays relatively stable. So what that implies is that as your number of orders increase and your staff is forced to increase to keep up, that's going to be roughly what you're seeing here. And then just the stuff that's kind of nonsense here on the number of orders per device, and that stays relatively stable too. What I want you, the reason that I'm sending this to you is that I'm encouraging you to use this as a tool to kind of do your own assessment. So in the green areas and the green rows here, put in your number of orders that you had. Actually put in the sales first, and then the number of orders that you had maybe for 2018 or year to date, a 12-month calendar ending at the end of May, the number of production people that you have working in the back room, and then the number of devices that you have. Then down here in the blue area, these numbers that I've shown here will be calculated. So to kind of give you a means of comparing yourself to whatever sales bucket you might be in. And again, every company is unique. This is not rocket science that says that you must be in this particular range at all. It's just a means of giving you some sense of comparing yourself to others. So at the bottom of the little worksheet is the instructions that I just commented on. So, and if anybody would be willing, if you're interested in doing that, it's intended just for yourself. But if you would share that with me, send it back, results back to me, then any of the results that I get, I will compile into a collection, and I'll update this and share it with everybody that shares with me. So if you would be willing to do that, I would appreciate it. and it might be of interest to the rest of the, to the rest of the group.
Paul,
Now,
can you give everybody your email address?
Yeah, it's, I closed the agenda here just a second. It's, my first name is Paul, P-A-U-L, at well, let me give you the serious one. It's P Kramme, K-R-A-M-M-E, at Sirius.com. P Kramme, K-R-A-M-M-E, at Sirius.com.
Thank you.
I'm gonna change to the next one here. Just I gotta see which one it is that I want. Open it up first. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to see if we have any comments or questions on this first piece before I move on. All righty. There's a series of pages here that, let me move it over so I can see it a little bit better myself. What I'm trying to represent on these pages is how work flows, okay? So come down so we can see the whole thing. So what I'm really trying to illustrate is that every day you've got new orders coming in the door. How many? It depends on your circumstance. On average, it's might be falling in those ranges that we just discussed. So the new order is going to come into the drawer. They're going to flow down into your scheduling, however you do your scheduling. So the new orders have to be intermingled with current work that's still in the production pipeline. It's handling some way you're handling that production. Then as the things are scheduled, then they actually come down to the production side. If a particular step of that production process gets done, then it might flow back up into the scheduling to advance it to the next step. Or this may happen within the production side if you're using the calendar app or the production app. Then as things finished, they flow out of the production side, and then they're picked up, they're delivered, they're installed, okay? And that ends the life. So in a theoretical sense, if you've got 10 new orders a day on average, you're going to fill in 10, but you're going to theoretically finish 10. So you want that balance. The goal would be to keep that balance so that you're not either overwhelming the production side or you're not underwhelming them where you have excess capacity. So this is just a visual view of kind of how things flow through your shop, okay? You come down, now we're one step deeper, and now we're looking at it more from a production, from a control perspective. So control, as you well know, has statuses, WIP, built, sales, and then all of those have multiple, one or more stations that are associated with that order, with these various statuses. So things that are in WIP, they're going to be associated with the appropriate the status, and then once that work is done, then it's ready to go into the next stage, which is the built side. That can be at the order level. It could be at the line item level, that is a particular line item or set of line items are ready to be delivered, so to speak. So then after that, then you flow down and you're into the sales side, where it's either installed, it's either delivered, it's picked up, it's shipped, and stuff like that. And again, that can be at the order level, and it can be at the line item level. Now, as I alluded to earlier, we showed you that whiteboard handout. To use the production, if you use the production board, you have to have credentials, and that's we illustrated in that first document. I didn't mention that. So the question is then, how do you schedule your activities? What's your process? What's your current process for scheduling? Do you use an external calendar like Google Calendar, or you just use a big old fancy whiteboard that's up on the wall? Does the schedule consider things that are at the order level, or do you take it deeper than that, down to the line item level, perhaps? How do you handle the prioritization of the scheduling? Do you get together every day? Does a group of 1 or 2 people get together every day or throughout the day and look at things? Do you do a more extensive review, perhaps on a weekly basis? I hear all of those comments when I, when it's doing some brainstorming with a group of 6 or 7 a week or so ago. Do you schedule the equipment? Do you schedule your people? Or is that just kind of more of a view of looking at the order itself and the line items themselves and do that level of scheduling? As I mentioned, who's involved? Is it the owner? Is it a production manager? Is it the individual, some of the individual people? I know of one client, a sizable client that's in that in that 3 million range. The nature of their work is very specific. They have a lot of digital printers for thermal printers. They have a lot of roll printers. They have a lot of flatbed printers, and they do screen printing. So their methodology was kind of interesting. They, as an order is delivered or comes in, it's rare that it does not consist of just one of those types of production. It's either going to be pretty much all screen print. It's going to be a flatbed. It's going to be a roll printer. So they have a lead person for each of those segments based on equipment. And they do their own scheduling. Okay, unique, but it works for them. And they are a very large, very efficient shop. Now, as we were talking with this group of people, they all pretty much expressed that they're feeling stress because it's beginning to be time consuming. Sometimes they feel that things get kind of out of hand, and they schedules lack awareness of what's going on in the production area, and things of that nature were the messages that were expressed to me. Now, I've kind of crossed over here, so I want to keep going with this particular thing. So here's the 3 levels that we saw based on statuses in the flow. Then if we continue that one step further, here, these are some of the important concepts that I wanted to talk about. You got control has really 3 flavors of stations, so to speak. The first one they refer to as department level, and we'll visually see what those are. Department level stations. You can have up to 2 more what control calls sub-level stations. So you might have a combination of a department all by itself, which is not unusual. You may have a department level station that you have to subdivide into 1 or more level 1 stations. Again, very common. You may have situations where you have a department. Within that department, you may have one or more sub-level stations, number one level, and then one of those level 1 stations may actually require a level 2. So you got a three-tiered process that's involved. So this is, I'm intending this to kind of illustrate your thinking as you begin to see how you want to handle the workflow, if you begin to automate that process. So just follow the general information I have up here, as well as a description of what I was trying to describe verbally, the meaning of each of these processes. Again, I want to pause to see if there's anything that's not clear as far as what I'm saying. So let me see if we've got some comments or questions.
No questions, Paul.
All righty. All right, I'm going to bring up another one here, just a second. I want to use this one first, so let me comment on it, and it is a preview, but that's not the one that I wanted. Yeah, it is. No, I'm going to close that. That's not the one I want. This is a Word document. There we go. Okay, I found what I want. I'm going to close some of these that we're done with. Okay, now, so if you're in control and you're going to create a station, okay, or you want to review the stations, where you're going to go is in the, if we were in control, you can go to production up in the task top row of the taskbar and choose production. Choose production setup, okay? Then on the left-hand side, you would choose stations, and that's going to bring up this thing, okay? So what I've got sitting here side by side is, this is what it would look like if you're creating a department level station. If you're going to create a station that is a level 1 or a level 2 station, it's going to look like so on this side, okay? So as you create a station, obviously you've got to give it a name. Then dealing with orders, I'm ignoring, stations exist for estimates too, but that's not part of our discussion today. So everything is in the context of orders. So a station, then, you're telling it that it's an order. Now you tell it, what is this station going to apply to in terms of the status? Is it going to be a WIP? Is it going to be a build? Is it going to be sale? Is it WIP and build? Is it WIP built in status? Is it built in status or sale or just sale? So it can be combinations of 1 or 2 or 3 of the statuses that station will be relevant to, okay? Down here, skip the estimate because it's not pertinent to our discussion today. Now, do you want to be able to use that and have that station applied not only to the order level, but also to the line item level. So it takes it down into a specific process, and you can schedule and assign the stations and move those stations from line item to line item, in addition to moving it from order to order to order, okay? Tell it whether you're going to use the time clock. This is necessary if you're going to use people and assign, have those people clock into and out of a station. This is part of the production process. If you automate that, you would need to utilize the time clock. Down at the bottom, if you're going to use the calendar app, or not the calendar, but the production app, you need to tell control that you're going to use the production app. Now, in one of the later handouts that we'll look at, I'm automatically assuming in that worksheet that you're going to use the calendar app, you're going to use the cloud app or the production app, and you're going to use the time clock. All of those are relevant if you're going to be using the calendar app as well as the production app. Now, the only difference over here on the right-hand side is for the sub-level stations, is that you're going to tell it that this station in the yellow row is a substation of, and then you give it the name. Everything else is identical. All of the other choices are identical. Now, notice up here, you got this thing called full name. That begins to be a concatenation of the parent or the department level name, the sub-level name, and the new name. Okay, so you're going to see begin in the next sheet that we're going to look at. You're going to see those names begin to combine themselves as you go across. So if we come down, this is what it looks like then if you expand, if you're looking at the stations in control and you expand all the plus signs that you see here, if you expand all of those out, this is what the station structure that I created for this webinar, that it represents kind of my view on how I would manage some of the production processes. This is probably what the approach that I would take. And yours may be very similar. It may be totally different. And what yours looks like is only important to you, not anybody else. So my basic view was at the very beginning, I have this department that's called pre-production. That's where I would associate design, okay, as a part of that process. What I didn't put in here that I might consider putting in was a second station level 1 that might be to accommodate materials or miscellaneous things that you have to purchase that you're not going to process, but you're going to simply buy, purchase, and resell. Okay, so I would probably put another item in here that would be miscellaneous or subcontract goods, and have one level 1 there, and maybe one or more others associated with it. Okay, so if I'm reading this across, this is the department name. This is the first level. So here's the pre-production, and it's really hard to see, but there's a hyphen in there. Then it's the second name, which is the InDesign, and then it's InDesign, and then you're going to see a pattern here of 4 stations that I visualize, and this has been in control for quite some time, that I like and embrace. You're going to see that it's in queue. What that simply means is that it's probably something new and it hasn't yet been scheduled. one that you're going to see is that it's now scheduled. It's in the schedule, it's been assigned, and it's ready to be worked on. Then when the production person clocks into it, then it becomes something that's in progress. Okay, skip the next two for a second. And then the last piece of the puzzle is that the production person has finished that task and they've marked it complete. Now it's ready to go to advance to the next step in the production process. Okay, so if it's completed here, then it would enter into one or more of these production processes that you see at the bottom. So I've kind of combined printing and laminating together. And then here's the 4 that you see. It might involve also in a different line item, perhaps in vinyl. It's in the vinyl production side in the same 4 steps. Then it might go into where you're doing mounting, or you're doing cutting, or you're doing routing. The more I think about this, I probably would separate those into one department and then have sub-level, one for mounting, one for cutting, and one for, and then the same set of 4, okay? This one here is just a playing with it. It's actually inactive, but it shows in the finished in the report. And then third step is when things are approaching finishing. That's actually pulling everything together. Then it's ready to go down here at the bottom. It would be done, and it's ready to go into the built status. And that's the first thing in there that I probably would consider is a QA function, quality, and this to make sure that everything is in order. And then coming over here to the right side is the delivery. It's going to be delivered. It's going to be installed. It's going to be have some servicing involved. It's going to have some shipping involved. And then at the very, very bottom, it's done, and it's all of these that are hitting complete then would be advanced on. Okay, so I'm simply trying to show the flow of how my mindset put my head around a production process if I were setting one up. Okay, now I'm going to open up another document here, and I'm going to close this one, and then we're going to look at another Excel spreadsheet here just a second. Okay, this is an Excel spreadsheet that is laid out to represent what we just looked at as the way it would appear in control. So I wanted to show you in here, in these first 3 columns, I'm indicating where do I want this station to be associated, what status. So you can see that all of them are WIP, okay? Until I get down to the bottom, and that's, well, there should be a yes there too. No, this is just showing that it's advancing. It's advancing then to the built side, and that would also be advancing to the sales side. So the first set of these would be just associated with WIP, what that station's name is, what the sub-level station name is, and what the sub-level 2 station name is, okay? And I'm always associating it with, at the order level, I'm always associating them at the line item level, and they're always having the time clock factor, and always relative to the cloud production app, assuming that I'm truly committing myself to use to fully automate the production process using the calendar app and using the production app. So this is the way I would express this as a tool in preparation for bringing it in adding these to control. Now notice at the very bottom of this spreadsheet, there's two sheets here, worksheets. One is the sample stations, and that's what we're looking at. Then if you select the second one, this is a tool or a worksheet that you might want to find helpful for yourselves in building a set of stations, either using the nucleus of what's in control to do that, modify them, rename them, add new ones, or making some that are there now inactive so that they're not of what you might be using. Okay, I've spieled a lot. Let's stop and see if we've got some questions.
We do have a question, Paul, and it's from Patrick, and it's, can you show us examples or stations and statuses at the line item level?
I will do that if you'll hold that, Patrick, when we get towards the end, and actually in the calendar app and production app, I will. If I don't show it the way I think you are asking, then holler at me, okay? But just bear with me because I think we'll see it.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other questions before
no other questions at this time.
All right. Now I'm going to I'm not having much luck here. Just a second. I'm trying to select and view Google. There we go. Okay. Let me close here because we're going to ping pong back and forth. I'm pausing here so I can get my stuff put together. All right. What you're looking at is the calendar app, the cloud calendar app. And this is where you would, to log into it, you would use, we recommend that you use Google Chrome. And that's what I'm doing. So you can see up here at the very top, I've got this first one. This first one is the calendar, and the second one is the production app. Okay. So I'm going to, as you clock in, as you log into the calendar app, what I'm going to do is walk down and just hit the content of what these things mean. When you log into the calendar app and the production app from an iOS device, from an Android device, or from a desktop, that process will structure physically how this looks based on what you're logging in from, okay? So mine, since I'm on a desktop, mine is optimized for that kind of view, okay? So starting at the top, what we're gonna do is walk our way down. In this dark, I think that's blue, I don't know if it's blue or black, but over here at the far left, it shows me who is logged in, okay? And it's myself. If I click the little down arrow. Now I see all of the other calendars that exist in Control that I can look at. So from a person standpoint, look, mine, Linda's, this one, which I don't think I've ever used, or that one is another calendar. From an equipment standpoint, I have a couple of flatbed printers, a couple of laminators, a couple of plotters, and a couple of roll printers. Okay, so let's just look at one of these here just a second. Let's look at mine, the calendar. Okay, what you're seeing here is that on Tuesday, we actually did set up one, and this represents an order. Is created. The event was scheduled for the 25th. And it's for this particular order, and it's a digital print. Okay. So the idea here is that you can look at it, you can add notes to it, and then when you're done, mark it complete. Okay. So if I mark it complete, now it is changed. Okay. So that's the concept of the calendar. You can look at it from a monthly view, a weekly view, which is what I've got up here, or for a day. Okay, so I can narrow it down to just today. We just looked at the week, and I could look at it from a month. And I can scroll backwards. If I go clear back to last year, I must have removed them. I thought I had them in here. Maybe it was, there we go. Here's some others that I've scheduled from, in prior years. Here's the calendar, here's the production labor and stuff like that. So you can scroll forward or backward to look at different calendars. I go back to the week. Okay.
Paul, we have a question.
Okay.
Is there a view that combines calendars?
Not that I am aware of. I think it's just, if I look, well, that was just myself. I don't think so, Linda. That's probably.
In Control, you can combine calendars.
Yeah, you can see them combined in Control, but I don't think you can, on the calendar app. Okay, now moving across, if I wanted to see showed the complete ones, I messed myself up big time here, just a second. There we go. If I wanted to see completed, you just toggle the showing completed, and the completed ones are always darkened. If you're done and want to log out, just log out. This allows you to trigger the resynchronization of the calendar app and Control itself. Okay. So this is, you can trigger it to refresh. And it does it routinely, but this permits you to do it on your own. Then you can add your own event. You can title it whatever you want it to be. Oh, come on. and just leave it on the 27th, leave it for right here, and then I'm going to save it. Okay. And here it is that I just added. Okay. And that's what now if I want to delete it, I can. I want to mark it as completed. I can do that, and then it's completed. Before I did that, before I hit the complete button, I could have added a note that reflected just prior to the completion. Okay. So the calendar app is really it allows you to see what has been scheduled, and then mark an item complete. View it, view other calendars, and add your own calendar stuff, your own activity, your own events and stuff. Any questions on the calendar app? I'm not, otherwise I'm going to close it.
No other questions, Paul.
Let me look at my notes here. We talked about the filters, Logout, refresh. I'm talking to myself, excuse me.
We have a question, Paul. Can you go to a job from the calendar?
Not to the job itself. You can, this is just going to show you what it looks like in control, but you're not going to alter they're not going to alter the job from here. Okay. Those that use the Google Calendar as a comparison, I know some that actually have a big monitor in their production area and they have control on it, and they also have Google Calendar on it. And they're doing essentially the same thing with Google Calendar, being able to see it up on that big monitor. And I would compare the calendar here, which is being driven by the activity calendar, activity manager. You're driving it much the same way. So you would be able to see much the same thing as if you had done this on using Google Calendar. That's my perspective of it. Let me back up here just a second here. I'm just looking at some notes. I'm going to go to the administrator. And I need to back up. I had some jobs in here that I wanted to didn't write down. There we go. Okay, on this, there's 4 items in here, okay? For the 3 on this date. And this one is all 3 of these are labor, okay? So if I open one of them, it just simply says that it was scheduled at 7:30 to finish at 8, and it was related to this company, and this is the order number, okay? And it's a designed labor, and that's the tag or the name that's associated with the event itself. And if I were to do that, wanted to find where it shows the parts or equipment. Well, I can't find it right now. Okay, here we go. This from last year, we did this similar to this fashion. And here was a piece of equipment that was scheduled for this particular printer, the order number, when it was scheduled, when it was supposed to end. And if you remember the calendar or the discussion on Tuesday, when you generate an estimate or an order and you're using a device or you're using labor, and schedule that labor or schedule that equipment, it's going to have the estimated amount of time that particular roll print was going to take. So my conclusion on this is that this particular line item was scheduled for 1 hour and 17 minutes. So the scheduling part that would be done, within control or part of the scheduling process would actually schedule that for a start time based on what the existing calendar looked like for that printer, and select it and hit the start time, and then it would use the duration to calculate the end time, okay? And so that it does that for the equipment and it does that for the labor. So you don't have to estimate, you don't have to separately put in the start time and end time. Just select when you want it to be scheduled, and then control will use the duration to put in, to fill in the completion time, the end time. Hang on 1 second. Is there more on the calendar? If not, I'm going to flip over to the production app now. And I think this is where, Patrick, I think you'll see some of the stuff. We're going to go back and forth between the production app a couple times.
No further questions, Paul.
I'm going to flip over to the production app. Linda, you're seeing that, right?
Yes, we are.
Production app, okay. So this is the production app. And I've logged in. And again, I'm going to kind of work my way from top to bottom. So the main section up here is in this blue band. And this gives you the ability to search for a job or search for an order. And we'll go into that in a bit. Then we'll talk about the concept of production boards. So you can, this one will allow you to access your production boards. And we'll see that you can establish favorites. You can look at system-wide ones. You can look at private ones, okay? If you're clocked in, then you can manipulate the time clock. And then the help button is pretty powerful. And I would encourage you to select on it and look at it, and even see if you can't print this off. It's about 11 pages long, but it gives a great deal of insight into the features and functionality of the production app. And we don't have the time to go into as much detail as this is doing. So I really would encourage you to rely on use that help feature. In the boards, this is what I'm talking about. I had previously created my favorite boards, okay? And we're going to talk about what I mean by boards in a bit. And another one that I labeled from last year, and another one. You can have a system-wide one where you can see all of the stations, okay? Now, what we're looking at here is we're looking at both completed, which is the grayed out stuff, as well as what's in build, okay? This shows these are old, so it's showing that it's way past due. It's showing a little bit about this is the company, this is the job number, the item number, and what it is, how many line items, and it's not completed. And this one is a similar, it's completed. Okay. These are the stations. So it's in printing and lamination. We talked about that before we flipped into the calendar discussion. This is in the station that I set up, and then that it's ready to be picked up. Okay. Let's look at this one. Here I've got nothing in shipped. These are the line items that are in the printing status, in pending design, and to be delivered where there's nothing.
Paul, we do have a question.
Okay.
What happens when you schedule multiple orders at the same time on the printer?
At the same time?
Yes.
They're just both going to be there with the same start time and same end time. That's kind of a flippant answer, but I can't perceive it any other way. You know, that you're probably going to be doing the scheduling, more of the scheduling in control. We can try to do that and see what it looks like. Let me finish my comments here, and then we'll get back into some deeper stuff. Okay. So you got the working my way across the search, the boards, the time clock. Time clock, after you've logged in, time clock becomes the default, and that's what you would see the next time around. The help button we've talked about and logging out. Section 2, time clock shows. If we look at the time clock, there's the composition of this. So I'm going to start up here at the top. This shows what the current status is. It says that I am currently clocked off. This is who is clocked in, or who's logged in, I should say. If I look at the circle, it says that the next thing for me to do would be to clock on. So if I click on it, well, before I do that, when we get down to the bottom, this shows the activity, the daily total in terms of hours for the day, for the week, and then historical down at the bottom. Okay. So you can, now if I clock myself on, it says that I can clock on, or clock in, I should say. I can resume the last job that I was working on. It times out, and then this shows the last. So let's clock on. Now it's telling me to choose a station that I want to clock into. So I think the comment came up Tuesday that if you're there, you've clocked in, but you're not yet working on a job, that might be an appropriate use of this general, okay? And you're clocking off of general. You're clocking off for a break, for lunch, etc. If you're in the accounting area, some of these are for that. So if it's just clock into general, now the clock is ticking. And that's what you're seeing here, okay? So if I click on that again and take a break for a break, now it says that I had been clocked in. I really didn't give it enough time to show, and then resume, okay? Now the clock is resuming. So as it is progressing, the daily hours are going to begin to grow, okay? And that would continue. So if you're clocked in, now that you're just going to go from task to task. So I'm going to leave the clock going there, and I'm going to move on here. If I go back up to this and say I'm clocking off for the day, now it says that's the total amount of time that I have been clocked in today, okay? I can come back in and clock in, and go to, maybe I wanted to work on some design stuff, okay? Now I've clocked on in that way, okay? All right, now I'm going to switch to control, so bear with me. What we're going to talk about here is some concepts that I think we really need to understand. So I'm going to go up to production, and then production setup and job groupings. Okay, that's the first thing that we have to really understand. So first question is, well, what are jobs and what are job groupings? Jobs combine items that you want to be routed through the production process together. Okay, that's the underlying premise. And there are three choices. If I get into the edit mode, the most basic one is I want to bring things through at the order level. So the order level keeps all of the items in that job, in that order, together as it's going through the production process. So it keeps an entire order together and views it as a single job, okay? That's probably where you might want to start. That's just a side comment that I found in the in that help screen, that you might want to start there. The second choice is this one, and it takes each line item and each child line item is treated as a separate job, okay? And then the third one, and this one I'm not sure I really can get my head around, to be honest with you. It's called the expanded line item grouping. Each line item and each child item are a separate job. So top level, each line and each child are separate. The last one is each line and each child are separated. They separate the two of them. So where do you choose the job grouping? If you're in control, we just talked about that. Let's look at, I'm going to cancel this. I want to go now to Explore. And I want to go to Explore line items. So here, what we're looking at is we're going to look at orders, okay, and then the status, and then come down to the filters. And here we're looking at all line items. So if you look at the item number, the 1, 1A, 1A, 1B, 2, 2A, that's the view that we're looking at. So if we take this down to the top level, now we're only looking at the top level item in that group, you know, for these orders. So you can see that I've got the order number 180, 1084, 1, 2, several different line items. So there's 8 different line items for that particular order. If I look at the only, so that I want to see only the child items, so here's the same orders, but I've got a lot of different child items. So in this one here, I get within line item 7, I have a child A and a child B. Whereas at the top, I'm seeing everything, okay? So 1084, top level, child A, child B, 2A, 2B, and so on down the line. So that's the Explorer view, you know, from within, that you're setting up in control and can view at the line item level in control. So some important things to remember is when you change the station of anything in a job, that changes the station for everything in that job. So in order for it to appear on a job board, the job must have at least one item. If it doesn't have an item, it's not going to show up in that board. The groupings of both new and existing orders then can be modified using the production control, setup in control. Okay. Now I'm going to flip over. We're running really long, and I've got to move along here. I'm going to go back to the production app, Google Chrome Production Cloud app. This is where I hope we'll get to. So the job boards are similar to physical job boards, and it's a way to quickly move orders through the different stations. That's the concept. So a job board is comprised of one or more lists that correspond to stations. And the station, again, is is where it is. So let's look at one of these. So here we got a job board. This is my board, and I had it set up to look at the stations for shipped, printing, and lamination, InDesign, and to be delivered. This is a particular item. Come on. There we go. So now this is showing me about that particular item. So it's been, I could clock onto it. This shows the job number, and it's going to be the order number, the 10263. And the J is the job. The order number itself is underneath it. What line item it is referencing, and it's currently clocked on, and it's currently in the design in progress station, okay? And it's a digital print, and that's the station that it's associated with. Over on the right, you've got two different pieces. You got the detail section and the action section. So the production information then shows what it is that you're doing. It's the information about that particular item. If I go back, the company, who it is, the due date, that shows the date that it's due, the job. In this particular board, there's multiple jobs that have all been tied together, and I can look at each of them individually. I can look at the jobs, I can look at the parts that are involved. Both the materials and the equipment and everything. I can add a new part if I need to. Notes, add notes, documents, other information. Then on the action side, I can change the station from here. Choose the new station. Now, from an action, if I'm out in the field doing I've done an installation, I could take a photo of it. I can capture a signature. Okay. All right. Now, Patrick, I'm not sure that I did indeed answer your question, so let's pause and let you raise it again to make sure that I'm on the same page with you.
Let me unmute Patrick.
Are you there, Patrick?
He may not have a microphone. So let me ask the question again.
Okay.
Can you show us examples of stations and statuses at the line item level?
Let me flip back to control here. I'm going to open this order. And you can see all the different line items. And there's the 8 line items. And here's the the child, the A and the B. So if we open this line item, I don't want to do it there. I want to do it in. Oh, here we go. So here's the parent, the 1084, the high level, the status of sale, and it's the station that it was associated with is in printing. Okay, So I'm seeing that in the in control in the station, and that's for the line item. I can change. Let's come down here to one that's in built. Here's one that's in 1081. If I want to change the station of that one from within control, I would simply say change station, and that is to be picked up. Okay. I could do that in the cloud app. The cloud production app. I could do it from there as well. Okay. So to see the line items, you have to use the in control. You're using the line item explorer rather than the order levels explorer. Does that answer, Patrick? Okay, got one more real quick thing to wrap up on, Linda. I may want you to clarify too. Both the calendar app and the cloud app and the production app are available. The cloud production app requires control version 6.1. There are two flavors of the production app. One is referred to the basic level, and there's no charge for that. And it provides you access to what they call basic services, which is the time clock, the job boards, the job and the station management process, and then as many different production boards as you want. What you cannot do from the basic level is you cannot utilize the document management features. You cannot capture photographs, and you cannot capture signatures, and you can't add parts. So that leads then to what they call the plus level, that there is a charge for, and it makes those other things. You got the basic features, and then it picks up the photo capture, and the part usage. Okay. And what I'm not 100% certain is the fee structure. There's a fee structure per user log in, and it's billed in arrears on the 25th of the month, and its billing is based on the actual number of user logins during the month. Regardless of how many times a user logs in, so it's not every single time. It's just that you logged in during the course of the month. So an example, if one user logged in, he logged in one time and he used the plus feature, it's $12. Second example, if one user logged in twice within that month, then the charge is $24. Is that still a current representation of the structure, Linda? I didn't think to ask you that before we started.
Yes, that's correct, Paul.
Okay. And the calendar app is no charge. There's no charge to use it. Folks,
okay, Paul, just a couple comments. Patrick said, yes, you did answer his question. He is having phone trouble. Okay. He also had another question. Are you able to schedule two stations over each other without logging the previous station out?
No. You assign a station, and that station stays there until you deliberately change it. But you can't have a line item or an order with effectively two different stations at the same time. No. Okay, and then we have just a comment on the production app.
There's a diagram of job grouping on page 5 in the Help tab on the.
That help document is really, really, really good. So if you're contemplating or considering using it, I would strongly encourage you to pay attention to that. Folks, I'm going to have to run here. We're getting ready to head out the door for vacation, and my wife is probably upstairs waiting for me. I really, truly hope that this session and the one from Tuesday have been helpful. They kind of they've been a departure of what we normally do. I have found them good for myself, and I hope that these 2 sessions were of value to all of you. I would encourage you to let us know that feedback on by doing the survey when you log out. That would be very much appreciated. And again, my email is pcramey@sirius.com if you have some additional questions. Now, I am going to be out of pocket, but I'll have access to email. I'm going to be out of pocket for about 10 days or so. Take care, everybody, and thank you for being part of the session today.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep. Bye-bye.